started looking around the district and figuring out what was going on and what the problems were. During my year as district deputy, one of our lodges went dark. They had tons of money. They just couldn't get enough people out to hold a meeting. So I put together this presentation to try and convince my own lodge what to do or how to go about it. They then encouraged me to get in touch with lodges in the district to put it on for those lodges. And then I was encouraged to put it on for the 3 lodges of the Hamilton district. And now I've been encouraged to come here and present it to you, my brethren. So at each iteration, it's taken on a slightly different flavor. And I've tried to expand some of the data to incorporate the larger group. But I will say that the basic data that I'm going to present, and I apologize for this, is really centered around Hamilton District B, because that's where I did the most research. I've expanded it to others, but it really relates to Hamilton District B, but in that in itself can be extrapolated to incorporate the entire province. So that's how I got started. Now, let me just see which one of these. Yep. So I start off with my disclaimers. I don't have an agenda. I've been accused of that. I do not have an agenda, other than my objective at the bottom. I have no answers. I don't profess to know what I'm talking about. I apologize to anyone who feels threatened by my comments, because they are radical at times. My comments are mine alone, and I accept full responsibility for that. I think I've got broad enough shoulders, and I think I've got a pretty good idea, though I can't put a box around what I'm trying to tell you. Like I got a pretty good idea about what I want to tell you. And of course, my objective is an open discussion regarding the future of the craft, not individual lodges, okay? So that's important that you remember. What I ultimately want to talk about is the craft. The data used is a picture of Hamilton District B since its last restructuring in 1973. Now, I picked that specifically because 1973 is within my lifetime, and I dare say it's within the lifetime of almost everybody, if not everybody in this room. It's also within the Masonic life of most of you brethren, okay? So don't tell me that it's too far in the past, ancient history. It's within your Masonic lifetime. The source of the statistical data is from Grand Lodge, specifically Very Worshipful Brother Michael Jenkins, the Grand Historian. So it's not my data.
And I took it from the annual proceedings. So
there you go.
Grand Lodge. You guys did it.
That's right, okay? As I've stated, the time frames within most brethren's life, in many cases within their Masonic career, and the information is representative of the province. Now, the reason I titled this Tomorrow is Now is once I get into this presentation, I'll make reference to Y2K. Everybody remembers Y2K. That wasn't that long ago when you start thinking about it. My, if you want to call it, doomsday scenario is that much in front of us. So we're at the midpoint. From Y2K to doomsday, we're at the midpoint. So whatever we're going to do, we haven't got a lot of time. So tomorrow is now. So I'm going to tell you my last slide before I even start, because I need you to think about these things as we're going through. Where are we going wrong? What can we do to change it? And to me, what is the critical number for a lodge's survival? There I'm talking about critical mass. How many members does a lodge need to survive? So, at this point, as I say, this thing keeps changing for me every time I give it. And this morning, as Dr. Ken Jones was talking, I kept thinking, boy, this ties in a lot with what I want to talk about this afternoon. And so I want to thank him for his sort of laying some of the groundwork for me. I want to get down two definitions, management and leadership. To me, what I've always been taught in my professional career, management is staying within the box. It's you follow the rules, you do what's right, that's management. Leadership is you go from box A to box B. You shift the paradigm. And what we need to talk about is leadership, because the box we've been in, I don't think is working. Now, the Grand Lodge Long Range Planning Toolkit for Lodges, this document, brethren, I'm sure you've all seen it. Many of you have gone through it. It's a great document. It really is. I'm not going to talk about it. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. This document is the how-to for an individual lodge. How to get from where you are to where you want to be. You choose a path, you agree on the vision, you monitor your progress, and then you know when you get there. Okay, those are important things. And believe me, I'm not here to circumvent that. I'm here to talk about something different. So let me just define for you what long-range planning is not. Every year you ask your master, have you got a program for the year? And he'll say, yep, got it all listed out, know what I'm going to do at every meeting. That is not long-range planning. That's an agenda. That's a schedule. Long-range plans have to look 5 to 10 to 15 years into the future. Okay? And that's where I'm talking, 15 years from now. That, to me, is the doomsday. And it's what drives our short-term perspectives. Okay? So if you have a perceived problem today, you've got to deal with it within. You don't look at it as an immediate need. The long-range problem has to be, everything you do has to work towards it. The immediate problems and the long-range problems are two different items. Okay? And each, when you go through a strategic plan and you pick up, we want to be, and I'll use this example, we want to be the richest lodge in the province. So you set out to up your dues, rent out your hall, get more membership. Each one of those paths has to have its own strategic plan. And they all come together to form, this is what we are trying to achieve. Okay? So you've got to, I'm just trying to put everything in context for you going forward. So each perceived problem or immediate need has its direction, and they all have their own strategic plans. So let's talk. Let's start where everybody always likes to start, with the money. Everybody always says we need more seats in the lodge because we need the money. The bills are going up, things need to get paid, we get more people in there. Now, again, I apologize that I haven't updated things for a while, but if I use the Grand Lodge information from 2012, that's basically when I first wrote this. 44% of the lodges in Ontario have more than $25,000 in the bank. And I can tell you, when I was district deputy, I had a lodge go dark. I think I told you this already, didn't I? They had more money. We couldn't figure out how to get rid of all their money. But they couldn't open a lodge meeting. You've got 15% that have between 25 and 15,000. You got 17 that have between 5 and 15,000, and only 14% of your lodges have less than $5,000. So money in itself doesn't appear to be the problem. I mean, lodges have lots of money. So my question would be, why do we always start there? Why do we always think we need to bring more people in just to get more money? There's other ways to look around. The average dues in the province are $115. Now later on I'll show you that the average lodge size in the province is 82 members. So that means each lodge brings in, on average, about $9,000 a year. You should be able to survive on that, I would hope. So once you've looked at the operating costs of the lodge, what is it that we're really offering, and is it worth the money? So you've got the current trends that occur in lodge. We've always done it this way. Well, that's not getting us where we need to be. Because it's the easiest, but does not always guarantee success. Take the easy road. Okay? And when we get into the statistical part of this, you'll see, brethren, that this is not getting us where we need to be. We talk about, well, everybody's more busy now. We've got, guys that have their kids in every sport and guys that are doing this and that and the next thing. We're all busier now. 30 years ago, competing interests were recognized in the Reflections magazine, or newsletter, quality versus quantity. Masonry is the same, man is not. So we've been battling this problem of, well, everybody's busier now. We recognized it 30 years ago, and we haven't done anything about it. What we're finding out, Condition of Masonry 2012 told us that only 20% of our membership is active. Now let's put that into a different perspective. If I have 82 members in the lodge, provincial average, if I've got 20% active members, I have 18 members. If you look at your lodge summons, you should have 14 officers listed on the back of that lodge summons. So that means you got 4 side benchers. That's what you got. You've got 14 guys that are doing office, 4 side benchers. At St. Andrew's 62, at our installation this year, we had 63 people attend the installation. And in the second degree, when the installing master says anybody beneath the degree of an installed master will please retire, we had 7 guys get up and leave. Meant we had 56 guys that were already installed masters at the installation, and only 7 that weren't. So, maybe we're a little top heavy there too. So let's talk about merit and ability. Would everybody agree that Masonry is not for everybody?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's one of our things we've all agreed on. Masonry is not for everybody. And I know that when I joined the craft, not only was I told that Masonry was not for everybody, but I was also told not everybody can be master of the lodge. Not everybody has the leadership or the qualities or whatever you want to call it to be master of the lodge. So what do we have happening now? If you ask a lodge, how are you doing? Well, we had 3 new candidates this year. How many, or we had 4 new candidates this year. And as soon as they get their Master Mason's degree, next year we're going to make them stewards. We're going to put them in the lineup. Well, what you've done is before the guy's even gotten his 3rd degree, you've already decided he's good enough to be master of your lodge. So what happened to his merit and ability? And then you push him forward so that in 5 years, he is master of the lodge. And everybody sits there how will I describe it? Some of the senior members of your lodge will be on the side benches going, God, this guy can't open, he can't close, he doesn't know what he's doing. Well, what did you expect? You've taken somebody, before they were finished their degrees, you've told them that they're good enough to be master, and then you've pushed them through, they don't understand the craft, and you've said, yeah, you're good enough to be master, and then you're going to sit and complain that they can't do the work? I mean, we've got to put it into a perspective, brethren. You know, there used to be a time when it was 10, 15 years to become master of a lodge. And you learned, you were mentored that whole time. So that's all, you know, we've got to talk about merit. We've got to consider it. Now, as I say, some of this may be a little disjointed, and I do apologize for that, but I've been trying to grow my little talk as it goes on. So this is a graph, believe it or not, and this is 1866, when Grand Lodge started. This is the number of lodges that we've had over the years. We started with, I think it was about 180, somewhere 170, 180, and now we're up to 560 or so. But we've gone up and come back down. So what does that look like? That's the lodges. This is our membership across the province. The average lodge size. Okay? You notice around 1961, that's when we peaked. Lodge membership going down has not changed in the last 50 years. That's the part I want to get across. You know, even when our membership was declining, we were still building more lodges. Our lodges don't peak until probably about the mid-90s. So again, this is membership, Grand Lodge. This is the jurisdiction. We start off, we peak about 1961, and we have just been continually falling off. This is the World War II. So you had this influx, lodges, Masonry was going up. We dropped off. After the war, we had this great influx, and then all of a sudden it just drops off. Now, as I said, this original, when I originally put this together, it was for during our lifetime. So I've gotten rid of the first 100 years, and I've just taken it from 1973, which is all within your lifetimes. There's your membership in one graph. So whatever we're doing, gentlemen, whatever we've been doing for the last 40 years is that. Now, if I take this graph and if I project it out, in the year 2030, we're at 0. Now, I can't speak for any of the rest of you in this room, but at 2030, I hope to still be around. So we know that it's not going to go down to 0, but we don't know how far down it's going to go. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? Is there a banker in the room? Any financial guys? Oh, come on, there's got to be somebody.
I left my wife at home.
Yeah. But I mean, imagine. Take the title off of this. You go into your banker and you say, I own a business, and for the last 40 years, that's been my growth projection, or that's been my income statement. What do you think he's going to tell you? Close the door and go home. So the question is, what are we going to do with numbers like that? Now, again, there's the number of lodges, and here's the average lodge size in the province. Okay, so let me just get down to some of the others that are maybe a little bit better. So when I was looking at this for Hamilton District B, okay, 1973, Grand Lodge had 117,000 members. That's what that other graph showed us. There were 639 lodges. The average lodge size be 183. District B had 3,500 members, 14 lodges. The average lodge size, 254. Today, now this was 2012, Grand Lodge is down to 45,000 members, 554 lodges, average size 82. District B is down to 1,000 members, 12 lodges, average size 82. Now, if I want to get back to these numbers, okay, and this is where I start getting some controversy. If you want to get back to these numbers, down here, we've lost 2/3 of our membership. So we need to lose 2/3 of our lodges. Hamilton District B should only have 4 lodges, and the province should only have 200 lodges if you want to get back to those numbers. And remember I said earlier, what I want you to think about is critical mass. If you've got 80 members and only 20% are participating, you've got 18, you've got 14 in the chairs, you've got 4 guys sitting on the side. So back when I joined, which was, back in 73, 74, when you had an average lodge size of 183 or maybe 250, whatever, if you had 20% participation, you still had 60 guys, 80 guys coming out. So yeah, the mass was enough that you could say, you're not going to be master for 10 years. And if you don't want to wait that long or you don't want to earn your spurs, somebody else will take your place. Now, we're down to where we haven't got that backfilling. So you might be sitting there saying, okay, all well and good. My lodge is okay. I've got money. I have 6 entered apprentices this year, and we've got a vibrant membership. Good on you. Question is, what are all the lodges in your district doing? Because, and here's a question I like to pose to guys. If yours is the last lodge standing, who are you going to go visit? Well, come on. Yeah, okay. No, and a little more sarcastically, my next question is always, what's the prize for being the last lodge standing? I mean, the number of times I've heard, again, senior brethren, they'll sit there and say, not going to happen in my lodge, we've always done it this way, nothing's, hey, that's fine. But I'm talking about survival of the craft, not your lodge. If, brethren, you have been a member of this fraternity for as long as I have, and some of you have been much longer than me, this is part of your life. It is not something it's once a month. It is part of your existence now. It's part of why you are. And if you've enjoyed it, if it's meant that much to you, why don't you want to guarantee that to the next generation? Because the way we're going, according to that graph, is the last lodge standing gets to turn out the lights before they go home. And that's it. There won't be anything after that. So again, I promised you, or I didn't promise, but I told you I did this for District B. So what I did, this is the average size of a lodge by Grand Lodge for the whole province. Again, just since 1973. This is the average lodge size for Hamilton District B. So where before we were well above the provincial average, we've closed that gap down to we are just the provincial average. So this is really more the norm now, not just for Hamilton District B, but for everybody. So, and again, I tried to throw statistics around because I was trying to get a good picture of what was going on. In 1973, St. Andrews 593 had 584 members. The low, Lincoln, had 79 members. Today, Wentworth Lodge is the big one in our district with 174, and Enniskillen is down to 49. Okay, so here's what that looks like. Irrespective of lodge, if I just take whatever lodge was the biggest in a particular year, which I did, and say, how many members did they have? That would be an accumulation of all the big lodges over the last 40 years in Hamilton District B. Now, you look at that and you go, what happened there? That was an amalgamation. Okay? This is the small lodge. It bounced back and forth between 2 or 3 other lodges, but it's always been under 100 members. And this is the district average. So you can see that the spread from top to bottom has now come down much, much closer. District C, and just so you know, I'm not skewing the numbers too much. District C, there's their total membership, there's their average. Steady decline. District A, same thing. No variation. So whatever we're doing, guys, we're consistent. So you might say, okay, what do we need to do to change it? We, brethren, have to make some decisions. One, we have to decide how important is Masonry to us. And 2, we have to decide on how we are going to make it survive for the next generation. It's got to be a consensus amongst many. I'm sure, and I'm not going to speak for Grand Lodge, I don't speak for Grand Lodge, but I'm sure as a district, if each one of you guys went back to your district and looked hard at the numbers and looked hard at what's going on, and if some district was brave enough to go to their district deputy and say, we'd like to take the 12 lodges in our district and collapse them into 4 and get 4 quality lodges with good membership, and you took that to Grand Lodge, I don't think they'd object. I don't think they would.
I think they will. It's called revenue.
The numbers didn't change.
They keep the same revenue though.
The numbers did not change.
It's the same revenue.
I'm just saying bring the quality down. Yes, sir.
In my district, we've seen this, but we've seen lodges amalgamate. And I mean, I'm lucky I come from the Vital Lodge. I come from
Yep.
one of those lodges that is initiating 10 to 15 people a year. Our problem is retention sometimes.
Okay, but hold on.
My question is, when we've seen these lodges that were hurting and they've amalgamated, 5 years later, they're hurting again.
Yeah, because
They haven't changed any leadership.
no, but it's because some of the lodge right now when lodges amalgamate or go dark, they're doing it because they're in a corner. They've got nowhere else to go. What I'm proposing, gentlemen, brethren, is that if we see this coming, why not plan for it? Why wait until a lodge has 2 choices, go dark or amalgamate, and then you've got no strength, you've got no choices? Well, if you know it's going to happen, if you're going to take a trip, you plan where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, how much money you're going to spend, all the rest of it. You know where we're going. Plan for it. Yes, sir.
Very much, my brother. If this is the trend, which we're not blind, we can all see this, how come you didn't propose maybe to Grand Lodge to have a province-wide conference on the future of Masonry?
I'm only here on my soapbox.
I
I mean,
said, why didn't you propose it? Why you did not?
no, I have Grand Lodge in the back of the room. Maybe they'll approach me. Yeah. I know, Charles, you want...
We'll appoint Worship Brother Dave Spolatini as the chairman of that.
Yeah. Now, brethren, just to bring my point home though, because we have to plan for you can't wait until it's too late, because by then you've got no choices. The thing is, I told you that Hamilton District B average is 82 members. And that's mathematically that's what it is. There's the 80 line right there. We've got 4 lodges that are right on 82, 2 above, and the rest are all below. Remember, we're talking averages. I mean, we've got lodges down here. I mean, these two trade back and forth as to who's going to be the smallest in the district. So, we have to start looking not just at our own lodge. We have to start looking districtly, because as I said, if the other lodges go, who are you going to go and visit? That's the truth. So, lodges have to look at how they continue to function at their current levels. I mean, that's a reality. If you're down to 80 members or whatever and you're struggling for membership, you're struggling for officers, you're struggling for money, that's not going to change, because as many that you bring in the front door are going to leave. So observant lodges. The Grand Master at his banquet a year ago had Andrew Hammer as the guest speaker, and he wrote this book about observing the craft. This I would recommend to everybody. It's one of the few books that I can honestly say I've written twice, or read twice. Yes, Deputy.
I like the concept of having a district project where you look at rather than a Grand Lodge or a lodge project. And that's the way you have to approach it. The reality is, one of the brethren spoke about it on the meeting. We retain more members through lodges going dark and going to the lodge they want to, particularly in the urban areas.
Yeah.
The problem you have is, you have an amalgamation between 2 lodges, you have a committee, the guys, well, I'm a closer friend to this lodge than I am that one, and they eventually drop out. If you're going to reduce the number of lodges, you got 2 things you got to accomplish. You do it at a district level, and you don't argue for 3 years whether you call it the Roland Morrow Lodge or the John Green Lodge, and you'll do that. If you take out the old sins that we've always had in the past.
Right.
But if you have a total district amalgamation, that's a much different, and it's a more creative way, because doing it individually, if you have lodges going dark, and in Waterloo, there's 2, maybe 3 going in the next year or so, there's 2 on the docket now, and in the one particular lodge, there were 39 or 49 members, and every one of them was affiliated with another lodge. We're not going to lose any. The pressure will be on the temple boards, because they won't be getting as many goods from each individual.
Could I just finish, because I know I'm getting pressed for time. So remember, brethren, I said, a strong lodge can plan and guide. A weak lodge can only react to influences over which it has no control. So if you wait until you're backed into a corner, you're either going dark or you're going to amalgamate, that's where you're at. You have no control over what's going to happen to you. So, brethren, in conclusion, Masonry is a lifelong journey of self-improvement. Yeah, we all agree on that. So if it was good enough for us, we need to find a way to make sure it's good enough and will be there for the next generation. Each meeting is a gathering of like-minded men. So we shouldn't have all this animosity about my lodge is this and your lodge is that. It's about the craft. Going to lodge should be an event. It shouldn't be, oh hell, I've got to do ritual tonight, so I have to go to lodge. But as soon as lodge is over, I'm leaving because they're only going to put on coffee and cookies. Going to lodge, you've got to bring the quality up. Lodge has to be an event that is worth going to, worth paying money for. I mean, think about it. If you were to take your wife to the theater and you spend $100 for the tickets, and you sit down, and during the performance, there's 2 guys sitting behind you that are yattering away all night, and they don't realize their voices carry. And then if the actors that are up there are mumbling, and then need a prompt every 3rd line, you're not going back to that theater anytime soon. But how many times have you gone to lodge, and that's exactly what you see? Guys that they'd rather have a visit with their friend than pay attention to the ritual going on. Guys that can't do the ritual but have always done the ritual, so nobody wants to make them feel bad and say, I'm sorry, we'd like you to train somebody new that can do it, let them do it. You know, we've just got to bring that back up. And the ultimate objective of long-range plan, not the lodges, is sustainability of the craft. As I say, if we don't start taking care of each other, if we don't start open, honest discussions, 2030, 15 years from now, that graph goes off the scale. So where are we going to be? What's going to happen? We don't know. And if we don't plan for it, it's going to do whatever it's going to do. And we will only be reacting to it. So as I stated at the beginning, where are we going wrong? What can we do to change it? And what is the critical number for a lodge's survival? How small or how big does a lodge have to be, numbers-wise? If you've got 80 members and got 20 guys coming out, if you're managing, fine. But if you need 40, if you want to have 40 guys out, you need to have 160 members. And there's only one way we're going to do that, because the big increase after World War II, that's never going to happen again. We have to plan now in order that by the time 2030 comes, we've got the plan in place, we've got a direction, and we've got some answers. And as I promised you, brethren, I don't have any answers. All I've got is questions. Thank you very much.